Hello everyone in the Ansakari, and today we are starting the central government where we will be studying about the president and the other offices of the government of India. So the very first office we have is the president office, and the constitution mentions various articles to uphold the sanctity of this office in the parliamentary form of democracy. So president, as you all know that president is a de jure head of India and prime minister is a de facto head of India. De facto means that prime minister will have the supreme authority in the practicality, and de jure means that president of India has the supreme authority in papers, in documentations, and that is why we have the two nomenclatures, that is the president as de jure and prime minister as de facto ruler of India. If we talk about Article 52 to 62, and not 62 itself, but 78, which talks about the central government, in Part 5, so the President Office, along with other central offices of the Government of India, are under the category of Part 5 of Indian Constitution, which mentions about the Union Executive. So President is the head of Union, State, Central, every sort of executive. The President is the head of whole country, whole nation. These Articles 52 to 78 comprises of offices like President, Vice President, Prime Minister, Attorney General of India, and the Council of Ministers. When we say that President is a de jure ruler of India, this also means that President is not only the head of the Indian state, but is the first citizen of India. What does this tag or nomenclature signify? That when we say President is the first citizen, it simply means that it's a symbol of India. It's a symbol of unity, diversity, integrity, and the old values of India. The character, tolerance, everything is represented in the President office. The President of India is a part of Parliament. He is the head of the executive. Why he is the part of Parliament? This is a question. So the answer is that all the bills, all the ordinary bills, all the money bills, all the constitution amendment bills do get implemented only when the president assigns them. So president is having the legislative power. That is why he is comprised as a major part of Parliament of India. If we talk about the elections of the president, so Article 54 mentions about the presidential elections. It says that since it is a de jure office, we do not require a direct election for the President of India. We can have an indirect election. The direct election means where the people themselves are casting their votes to elect their representatives, as in the case of member of parliaments, member of legislative assemblies, and even the council of ministers and the prime minister. But unlike in the case of president, we have this tradition, this constitutional tradition, where we provide indirect form of election for the president of India. How this works? यहाँ पर होता ये है कि एक इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज का मतलब कोई आम कॉलेज नहीं होता जिसमें हम पढ़ने जाते हैं. इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज इज अ इंग्लिश टर्म व्हिच इज सिग्निफाइंग अ कलेक्शन ऑफ एमपीज, यानी एक ग्रुप जिसके अंदर मेंबर ऑफ पार्लियामेंट्स होंगे, आपके एमएलएज होंगे, ऐसा एक ग्रुप, उसको इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज के नाम से जाना जाता है. वो प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया को इलेक्ट करेगा. अब क्वेश्चन इज हियर दैट व्हेन ही इज इलेक्टेड, व्हाई वी आर यूजिंग द वर्ड indirect? It's simply because the direct representatives of the common man of India are electing one entity as the president, not people directly are electing. Then who are the members of the electoral college? Number one, MPs of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. We have exceptions also, we'll be looking at them in detail. So Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, as we all know that we have around 545 MPs in the Lok Sabha and around 250s in the Rajya Sabha. And since we are heading towards the next census, and the delimitation commission. So we are going to extend this membership around 800 also in the Lok Sabha itself. Number two, elected members of the legislative assemblies of the state. We have 28 states in India. So every MLA will be the part of this electoral college. But provided the legislative councils and the member of legislative councils do not come under this category. So the 6 states where we have the legislative councils, they are not having any sort of say in the election of the president. Number third, legislative assemblies of the UTs of Delhi and Puducherry. So now we can say that not only the UT of Delhi and Puducherry, but the UT of Jammu and Kashmir will also be coming under this category. So Delhi, Puducherry, and Jammu and Kashmir. So MLA of these three assemblies will also be the part of this electoral college. Now, what are the exceptions in these categories? Number one, nominated member of both the houses, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, nominated member of both the houses of state, legislative assemblies and councils, and nominated members of Delhi, Puducherry, and Jammu and Kashmir also do not participate in the elections of the president. And the last exception is where any state assembly is dissolved by the speaker, by the president, by any representative law, then the members cease to qualify for the vote in the presidential elections. Why so? Because president is the head of the state, he is having sanctity, his office is having a lot of sovereignty. So we can't entertain that a representative who is caught in some sort of parliamentarian cases do gives his vote, and that derail the process of elections of the president because it is highly costly. So these people do not take parts, as we mentioned. Then president is elected by which system? We have two systems in India. That is direct representation, and number two is we have proportional representation. In direct representation, we follow the principle of first past the post, which simply means that if in a constituency, let's suppose we have the constituency, as we can take the example of Delhi. So in Delhi, we have around 11 constituencies. From each constituency, the citizen selects one representative as the MP in the parliament. So we can say that if Delhi is sending 11 MPs into the parliament, particularly in the Lok Sabha, then they are following the principle of first past the post system. If in each constituency, four candidates are contesting the election, 11 candidates are contesting the election, that doesn't make a sense. Whosoever gets the majority of votes, he will be declared as the elected leader of that particular constituency, and he will be representing the whole constituency within the premises of the parliament. But the second principle is proportional representation. It says that in the proportion of the votes, you will be considered as elected or not. Now, what does it mean? It means that when the proportional representation vote takes place, we have some categories like A, B, C, D, in which we have the categories first preference vote, second preference vote. So if let's suppose X and Y person, there are 2%, or let's say 3%, X, Y, Z. If X gives his first preference vote to a person and gives second preference to second person, third preference to third person, X, Y, Z, if in total they give majority of votes to first preference, then according to proportional representation system, that person will be elected. We will be talking in detail about these systems later on. So proportional representation. Now the question comes, what was the need to have this technical principle? So as we all know that India is a land of diversity where we have majority communities and we have the minority communities. So in the constitution itself of the world, we have this principle of proportional representation to accommodate the needs, the aspirations, and the demands of the minorities, which can be only acquired, which can only be accommodated when we are electing the representatives on the basis of this proportional. Every community will be giving their proportion of votes to each representative so that the one best person can be elected. So proportional representation is a method to select the best, and direct or the first post the past system is the mechanism to select the most likable, the most probable. In the proportional, we have the best, and in the first past the post system, we have the better. We can simply understand by this. Then by means of single transferable vote, which simply means that once you have casted your vote, it will be singly transferred to the second preference, not to the every preference, and in a secret ballot. This anonymity is ensured in the constitution because of the president's office, secrecy, and the integrity of this office. And if any person thinks that this is not, so he or she can mail the parliament house and the president office, so his or her demand will be accommodated duly. Number two, we have the values of vote. So जैसा कि हमने देखा कि एमएलए भी वोट देते हैं इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज में और एमपीज भी देते हैं, तो दोनों की वेटेज में क्या डिफरेंस है? सो वैल्यू ऑफ वोट ऑफ अ मेंबर ऑफ लेजिस्लेटिव असेंबली, यानी एक एमएलए की वोट का वैल्यू कितना है? टोटल पॉपुलेशन ऑफ द स्टेट डिवाइडेड बाय टोटल नंबर ऑफ द एमएलएज इन द हाउस into 1/1000. So this is a technical part. We can calculate and we can come on a conclusion. Then values of a MP. एक MP के वोट की वैल्यू कितनी है? तो पूरे स्टेट के जितने एमएलए हैं उनके वोट की वैल्यू डिवाइडेड बाय हाउस ऑफ पार्लियामेंट, जो टोटल नंबर इन इलेक्टेड एमपीज इन बोथ द हाउसेज ऑफ पार्लियामेंट इन द स्टेट लेजिस्लेचर, यानी आपके पूरे स्टेट के एमएलए की जो वैल्यू है डिवाइडेड बाय दोनों हाउसेज पार्लियामेंट के, राज्यसभा और लोकसभा, सभी के एमपी, उनकी वैल्यू दोनों को डिवाइड करो तो आपके एक एमपी की वैल्यू निकल कर आती है. तो इसलिए हम कह सकते हैं कि द वोट ऑफ the value of the vote of an MP is much bigger than the value of the vote of an MLA. Proportional representation system, it is clarified here. So let's see. Suppose there are 100 valid voting papers and 4 seats are to be filled up. In order to determine the quota, 100 is divided by 4 plus 1, that is 5, and the quotient arrived at namely 20. So after the quota is fixed, any candidate whose total number of first preference vote is equal. So this is a technical part. We can move forward. तो प्रोपोर्शनल रिप्रेजेंटेशन जैसा कि हमने देखा, माइनॉरिटीज एक्सक्लूड ना हो जाएं, इसी को ध्यान में रखकर ये सिस्टम, ये जो मेथड है, इसको अपनाया गया इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में. तो कहाँ कहाँ पर होता है? वाइस प्रेसिडेंट के लिए भी होता है, प्रेसिडेंट के लिए भी होता है, और राज्यसभा में भी. हम देखेंगे कैसे होता है. सिंगल ट्रांसफरेबल वोट का मतलब होता है ईच वोटर विल हैव ओनली वन वोट व्हाटसोएवर नंबर ऑफ कैंडिडेट कंटेस्टिंग इन द इलेक्शन, यानी आपको एक ही बार वोट देने का अधिकार है. Now, what are the common issues related to the election of president? Number one issue is whip. Whip is a political convention where each political party selects one person of their party as the regulator of the whole party within the premises of the house. In the constitution, this office is not mentioned as such, as it is mentioned in the RP Act 1950 and 51, which provides the guidelines that in case the recommendations and the decisions of the whip is not mandated by individual or by the group of MP, then the disciplinary action will be taken against by the MPs. Why the office of whip is considered important? Because it regulates the behavior. Number two, regulate the voting. Number three, regulate the attendance. Number four, regulate the bill making mechanisms of parties in the houses. So these are four important responsibilities which the office of whip follows and performs. So election जब होता है president का, तो इस whether political parties can issue a whip, ये एक बड़ा क्वेश्चन है, क्योंकि जो इंडिविजुअल एमपी जब वोट देते हैं प्रेसिडेंट के इलेक्टोरल कॉलेज में, तो उनकी अपनी मर्जी नहीं होती है, वो विप की ही मर्जी होती है, वो पार्टी की ही मर्जी होती है कि किसको वोट देना है, जो कि हम प्रैक्टिकल में देखते भी है। तो सीक्रेट बैलेट इसलिए यहाँ पर क्रिटिसाइज किया जाता है कि एक इंडिविजुअल एमपी का जो प्रेफरेंस है उसको कहीं ना कहीं निगलेक्ट किया जाता है प्रेसिडेंशियल इलेक्शन में, जब हम बात करते हैं सीक्रेट बैलेट जहां पर विप का मिसयूज देखने को मिलता है। सुप्रीम कोर्ट इन कुलदीप नायर वर्सेस यूनियन ऑफ इंडिया, यहाँ पे बात होती है 10th शेड्यूल की। तो यहां पूछा गया कि क्या 10th शेड्यूल का उपयोग किया जा सकता है इन द केस ऑफ इलेक्शन ऑफ राज्यसभा इफ एमएलए वोट फॉर अ कैंडिडेट इन डिफेंस ऑफ पार्टी डायरेक्शन। यानी अगर आप अपनी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी की बात नहीं मानते हैं, अगर आप अपनी पॉलिटिकल पार्टी के विप की बात नहीं मानते हैं और आप कोई वोट दे देते हैं किसी भी इलेक्शन या राज्यसभा में, तो क्या आपके ऊपर 10th शेड्यूल के अंदर एंटी डिफेक्शन का मामला दर्ज होगा? लेकिन सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने कहा कि नहीं होगा। इलेक्टर वुड नॉट अट्रैक्ट द पीनल प्रोविजन सो वोटेड एट द राज्यसभा इलेक्शन। लेकिन ऐसा प्रेसिडेंशियल इलेक्शन में अभी तक कोई वर्डिक्ट नहीं है। क्या पॉलिटिकल पार्टी एब्सटेन कर सकती है इलेक्शन से प्रेसिडेंट के? ऐसा मुद्दा 2007 में देखने को मिला और इलेक्शन कमीशन का ये कहना है कि पार्टियों का राइट है कि वो डिसाइड करें कि उन्हें पार्टिसिपेट करना है इलेक्शन में या नहीं करना है, और पार्टीज का फुल राइट है कि वो इलेक्शन से एब्सटेन कर सकते हैं। तो दिस इज अ नोविस इंफॉर्मेशन व्हिच वी कैन टेक द नोट। Now we talk about eligibility, and before the eligibility we can come on certain other provisions. Number one, कि अगर हम प्रेसिडेंट का इतना टाइम कंज्यूमिंग, इतना कॉस्टली प्रोसेस अगर ला भी रहे हैं, तो क्या क्वालिफिकेशन हमारे प्रेसिडेंट साहब की होनी चाहिए? तो जो कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है उसने बताया, उसने कहा कि 4 तरीके की प्रावधान जो है उस पर एक कैंडिडेट को पूरा उतरना चाहिए, तब उसको हम प्रेसिडेंट बना सकते। नंबर 1, ओनली अ सिटीजन ऑफ इंडिया कैन बिकम द प्रेसिडेंट। Number 2, at least he should have spent his 35 years of life. Post 35 years of age, he can be considered as eligible person to be elected as a president, because this office requires some sort of experience of life. Number 3, he should be qualified for the election of the member of the Lok Sabha. इसका मतलब सिंपल सा यही है कि the person who wants to become the president of India should have the credibility, should have the power, should have the enough capabilities to elect as a Lok Sabha MP. Here the word is not used Rajya Sabha. अगर आप लोकसभा के एमपी यानी फर्स्ट पास द पोस्ट सिस्टम के हिसाब से अगर आप लोकसभा एमपी बन जाते हैं तो ही आपको प्रेसिडेंट बनाया जाए, यानी आप एक एमपी होने चाहिए। और जो लास्ट चीज कही कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ने, वो कहा कि आप कोई भी ऑफिस ऑफ प्रॉफिट either in the union or in the state or in any sort of government authority, local authority, you should not be having any sort of stake, any sort of membership, any sort of association, in case it is found you are not eligible. And the last thing, exhibition, which is a sitting president or the vice president of the Union of India, governor or the lieutenant governor in the state context, union minister or the state minister, everyone is exempted from their already designation and they can become president of India. They are qualified to do so. और जब हम बात करते हैं कि इलेक्शन जब होता है प्रेसिडेंट का, तो क्या फी आपको इन्वेस्ट करनी पड़ती है और कितने लोगों की आपको बैकिंग चाहिए, तो जब आप नॉमिनेशन फाइल करते हैं तो आपको 100 एमपी की सपोर्ट चाहिए, यानी 50% or 50 MPs or electors or MLAs should support you in the very first instance when you are going for the nomination papers. And number two, when your name is coming in the contesting list, then the election commission should be mated with the 50 more MPs who can support you. So 100 MPs are required to support the candidature for the president office. And 15,000 is the lump sum, some security deposit which you have to keep in the RBI, Reserve Bank of India, not in the SBI, because this is the highest office and RBI is considered as the highest financial institution of India. Then what is the oath and affirmation before we go for the eligibility for re-election? Because once we have elected a president, so it is important to understand the oath and affirmation. Oath and affirmation is simply a moral and a civic responsibility of every political office in India. If you are entering an office, whether it is a panchayat, whether it is the administration, whether it is the MLA, whether it is the MP, or it is the governor or the president of India, everyone must need to take the oath and affirmation before the eligible person. In the case of president, it is the Chief Justice of India, of Supreme Court of India, is the person who makes president subscribe his oath and affirmation. In case the CJI absent, the highest judge, or we can say the senior most judge of the Supreme Court, is allowed to do so. Oath में लिखा क्या है? Number 1, you have to faithfully execute the office. Number 2, you have to preserve, protect, defend, and ensure that the law and order is maintained and the constitution is ensured. And that is why when the union government imposes Article 355, where the constitutional duty of the government to protect law and order and the constitutionalism, it is the president in the written papers, not the union government. It is the president of India. Number 3rd oath, to devote himself for the service and the well-being of the people. आप लोक कल्याण की बात कीजिए, आप शासन की बात मत कीजिए, आप लोक कल्याण की बात कीजिए. इसलिए हमारे यहाँ बजटरी स्पीच भी होती है जब लोक कल्याण की जो पॉलिसीज है उनका चर्चे, भारतवर्ष की जितनी उत्थान की बातें होती हैं वो प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया करते हैं, क्योंकि उनसे संदेश देते हैं कि जो प्रेसिडेंट का ऑफिस है जो वेलबींग की बात करता है, सर्विस की बात करता है. Now we can talk about the eligibility for the re-election. So first President of India, Bapu Rajendra Prasad, no other president had chosen to contest for re-election. In 2002, we saw the similar case where President Dr. K.R. Narayan expressed the willingness to contest for the second term. No president other than the first president choose to contest for the second term. It is an established convention that President of India shall have only a single term. लेकिन अगर हम प्रैक्टिकलिटी की बात करें तो President of India can be re-elected for number of times. अगर कोई ऐसा इंसान कल को आए जो 35 साल क्रॉस किया हो और उसको 100 की जगह 200 एमपी सपोर्ट करते हो और उसका एक टेन्योर 5 साल का अच्छा हो, तो उसको दोबारा, तिबारा, चौथी बार, पांचवी बार, कितनी भी बार उसको प्रेसिडेंट बनाया जा सकता है. अनलाइक इन द केस ऑफ यूएस where the maximum term is 2 times. You can only become the president only for twice in the US. In India, there is no limit as such. Now, ballot paper, only ballot paper is used in the election of the office of president. So, I think today we have shifted from this convention. Today we are using the electronic voting within the parliament houses with the paper checking record also. And no nota option we have in the president election. You cannot say that I will not give preference to anyone, so there is no nota option. But yes, as we talked about in the first page, that any political party can abstain from contesting in the election of the president willingly, and there will be no compulsion by the constitution, by the government, by the election commission. Anti-defection law will not apply to president election. So we can say that president is having the immunity from this 10th schedule of Indian Constitution. Then term, we talked that term is 5 years. एक बार अगर आप president बन जाते हैं तो आपको 5 साल का आपका time period होता है, and आपको कितनी भी बार के लिए re-elect किया जा सकता है. Qualification जो हमने बात की, that is mentioned in Article 58. Then conditions of the president office. Number one, he cannot be a member of Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha, but he has to become capable to contest election as the Lok Sabha MP. यानी अगर प्रेसिडेंट को बोला जाए कि आप कौन से हाउस की मेंबरशिप के लिए एलिजिबल हैं, तो लोकसभा, नॉट राज्यसभा, बिकॉज इन दैट केस वी हैव द वाइस प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया. He is not member of both the houses, but still he is a part of parliament. Why so? Because the parliament, which is the agency to make law, only becomes complete when the president office comes into the picture because of its legislative powers. He should not hold any office of profit, mentioned Article 105. उनको रहने के लिए राष्ट्रपति भवन दिया जाता है without payment of rent, with 3,000 servants and defense staff personally. राष्ट्रपति भवन के बारे में अगर हम जानना चाहें एक वर्ड में, तो दिस इज द वर्ल्ड्स लार्जेस्ट प्रेसिडेंट हाउस which is established located in India. इनको कोई भी इमोल्यूमेंट्स, अलाउंसेस, प्रिविलेजेस का कोई चार्ज नहीं देना होता. उसके बाद इनको इम्यूनिटी होती है दोनों तरीके की, सिविल एंड क्रिमिनल. अगर इन्होंने कुछ भी पर्सनली क्रिमिनल एक्ट किया है तो भी इनको इम्यूनिटी, इनके ऊपर कोई केस रजिस्टर नहीं होगा द टाइम पीरियड ही इज द प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया. He will not be arrested, imprisonment at any time, at any place when he's serving as the President of India. Only the civil proceedings can be initiated, which simply means that if he's having any sort of civil problem, divorce, marriage, inheritance, such kind of provisions in which he has been caught, only then the civil proceeding can be initiated, provided you provide them a prior notice. So we can say that act checks and balance are also on the president's office, and that is why we are the parliamentary democracy rather than parliamentary monarchy, which is the Britain. Because in Britain, when we talk about the monarch, so he is having immunity for lifelong. His children, his forefathers, are having immunity from anyone. He can sue the prime minister of the Britain, and they can do anything. So that is not in the case of India, because India is considered as a republic democracy, unlike republic monarchy, which is Britain. Then if we talk about impeachment process, so this term impeachment is used only for few individuals. Number one is the president, and number two, we have the judges of the Supreme Court. Not even for the vice president, not even for the prime minister and the council of ministers, this term is used, because this term is not a term in itself, it is a process in itself. Now what this talks about? The process of impeachment is mentioned in Article 61. It says that in case the president violates the constitution, then he will be impeached, which simply means he will be removed from the office of president. And this is the only condition on which he can be removed, that is a violation of the constitution. Now the beauty of Indian constitution makers is that they have not defined even what is a violation of the constitution, so it becomes highly ambiguous and superficial to decide, and that again is a matter of concern and conflict of interest between the union government as well as the judiciary when there's such kind of impeachment process comes into the picture. In India, only twice we have seen that the resolution was forwarded against two presidents of India, but till the date, we have not any single president who has been impeached from his office. So how the impeachment process takes place? Impeachment charges that the violation of constitution has been taken place by the president, and ऐसा एक resolution बनाना पड़ेगा किसी भी हाउस में वो रेजोल्यूशन इनिशिएट किया जा सकता है, चाहे वो लोकसभा हो चाहे वो राज्यसभा हो। 1/4 मेंबर, जिस हाउस में वो इनिशिएट किया गया है, 1/4 मेंबर यानी स्पेशल मेजोरिटी से उसको साइन किया जाए। 14 डेज का नोटिस दिया जाए प्रेसिडेंट ऑफ इंडिया को कि आपके खिलाफ ये हम कर रहे हैं। और जब इंपीचमेंट रेजोल्यूशन 2/3 मेजोरिटी से दोनों हाउसेस की पास हो जाए, तब जो है वो चार्जेस जो है उनको माना जाएगा और उनको इन्वेस्टिगेशन उसके ऊपर होगी। और द टाइम द इन्वेस्टिगेशन इज गोइंग ऑन, द प्रेसिडेंट हैज अ राइट टू अपीयर एंड बी रिप्रेजेंटेटेड एट द इन्वेस्टिगेशन। यानी जब प्रेसिडेंट के खिलाफ ही इन्वेस्टिगेशन हो रही है, तो ये भी एक सॉर्ट ऑफ इम्यूनिटी है प्रेसिडेंट के पास कि वो इन्वेस्टिगेशन में आकर देख सकते हैं कि आप किस तरीके से इन्वेस्टिगेशन कर रहे हैं, और मुझे भी देखने का अधिकार है। दूसरे हाउस को भी स्पेशल मेजोरिटी के साथ उस रेजोल्यूशन को पास करना होता है, और अगर दूसरा हाउस स्पेशल मेजोरिटी के साथ उसे पास कर देगा, then the president is bound to be impeached. He will not be having any sort of appeal. And if we categorized this power of the parliament, so this is a quasi judicial power of parliament where the head of the state is also beneath the jurisdiction of the parliament, which is representing the people. And that is why we can say that India is a representative form of parliamentary democracy, where the parliament is having sovereignty over all the institutions in exceptional circumstances. अगर हम बात करें कि कौन से ऐसे लोग हैं इस टाइम पर जो पार्लियामेंट के अंदर तो हैं, दोनों हाउसेस के अंदर, लोकसभा और राज्यसभा के अंदर, लेकिन वो इम्पीचमेंट प्रोसेस में का पार्ट नहीं होंगे। नंबर 1, नॉमिनेटेड मेंबर ऑफ आइदर हाउस ऑफ द पार्लियामेंट जो इलेक्शन में पार्टिसिपेट नहीं करते हैं, वो इम्पीचमेंट में पार्टिसिपेट करेंगे। रीजन, बिकॉज नाउ वी वांट द इम्पीचमेंट प्रोसेस टू complete early. Number 2, even the nominated member of parliaments are representing some sort of community, some sort of people. So we can say that collectiveness is ensured here. And number 2, who will not come? All the MLAs will not come. Only the parliament, Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha will participate in the impeachment process, and elected members of legislative assemblies of the state of UT, of Delhi, Puducherry एंड जम्मू एंड कश्मीर जो पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे थे, यानी ऐसी 3 यूटी जिनके लोग पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे थे इलेक्शन में, वो भी पार्टिसिपेट नहीं कर सकते इम्पीचमेंट प्रोसेस में। Why so? Because no state assembly, no state legislature is allowed to do so. Only the parliament is having the supreme right to decide the impeachment process of the president of India. इससे पहले कि हम बात करें अपॉइंटमेंट्स की, so we can take the brief note about the some other areas where the president office gets vacant. Number 1, कब खाली होता है प्रेसिडेंट ऑफिस? पहला, जो प्रेसिडेंट साहब है वो 5 साल का टेन्योर अपना पूरा जी चुके हैं। नंबर 2, उन्होंने रिजाइन कर दिया। नंबर 3, उनका इम्पीचमेंट हो गया। नंबर 4, उनकी डेथ हो गई। नंबर 5, उनको डिसक्वालीफाई कर दिया गया है क्योंकि उनका डिक्लेयर इलेक्शन ही इलीगल था, अनकॉन्स्टिट्यूशनल था, एंड इज कंसीडर्ड एज नल एंड वॉइड ऑफ द कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन। तो जब इन 5 तरीकों के तहत कोई वैकेंसी क्रिएट होती है, तो ये जिम्मेदारी है पार्लियामेंट का, और ये जिम्मेदारी है इलेक्शन कमीशन ऑफ इंडिया अंडर आर्टिकल 324 कि वो इन सारी सिचुएशंस के पूरा होने से पहले ही डिक्लेयर करे डेट कि प्रेसिडेंट का इलेक्शन कब होगा, क्योंकि वी कैन नॉट डिले द प्रोसेस ऑफ इलेक्शन ऑफ द प्रेसिडेंट बिकॉज ही इज द हेड ऑफ द स्टेट एंड वी कांट लीव इवन फॉर अ सिंगल डे दिस चेयर वैकेंट। एक भी घंटे के लिए ये कुर्सी खाली नहीं हो सकती है। इसलिए it is a very sacred responsibility to the election commission and the parliament of India to have the elections before the date. And in case the election is happening and there is no elected, then the previous president is allowed to work as the president. In case the president is died, then the vice president of India. In case the vice president is not there, then the Chief Justice of India is allowed and is compelled to perform the duties and the responsibilities of the President office, and within the meantime, the election will be held. Then the newly president, जिसको elect किया जाएगा, he will complete his term of 5 years. And when the vice president of the CJI acts as the president, then they perform and discharge all the responsibilities and they enjoy the benefits of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So this much we have, and we can talk about the appointment process. So what we can do is we can categorize the executive, legislative, financial, and the judicial power, and in that category we will be studying about the appointment process also of the President of India. So thank you so much, and we'll be looking the subsequent part of the President's office tomorrow in the class. Thank you so much.
Thank